Our next speaker is Sathya Natarajan. He is the author of the One-Page Tree Act. We will go to the questions for Sarang sir's section after all the speakers are done. You can keep dropping your questions in the chat box. Thank you. Over to you, Sathya.
Are you able to see
Yes.
the screen?
Yes.
Any bars that are coming in between? No?
No. No.
Okay. So thanks for the introduction. I will continue with few disclaimers as to why I'm speaking about this. When the entire river is polluted, what does tree do in between? We saw the earlier movements in Pune, the Vetal Tekadi, before that Green Pune movement, and then the Chipko Andolan, and then what stands between the hills and the rivers are the river banks, in which there is a complete ecosystem of forest which has trees. I'll take you through all the technical details as an individual, as the responsibility of a citizen, responsibility of the commissioner, responsibility of the tree authority, and what is a vital role that it plays here, and particularly why we should be aware of the history so that we learn from it and just not rinse and repeat. So earlier, the Maharashtra Urban Trees Preservation and Protection Act 1975, earlier it assumed an avatar called as a Tree Felling Act. So it was all about dispensing permissions to cut trees for whatever reason it is. Then the theme around how it moved from a permission granting act to actually preservation, protection, and prevention. So I'm going to talk about that. So I would simply say people who learn from botany are blessed, because they will be able to understand the taxonomy, what tree it is, what plant it is, and so on and so forth. As a common man, what I know is just what had happened in the past, what did it affect, and what did we learn from it. Now, trees just don't provide oxygen alone or sequester carbon, they also provide lives. And me have multiple roles to play. As a disclaimer, I am the Swachh Survikshan Ambassador nominated by PMC for 2023. And I'm also the Captain Puneri Nayak of Indian Swachhata League, similar to IPL, which is Indian Premier League. But this one is for Swachhata League. And the third one is I'm also a Paryavaran Doot by Maji Vasundhara, and I'm still trying to take an appointment with the commissioner to have it returned back. With all the mixtures of responsibility and things hanging over me, I can also talk with confidence, not just about the current situation, but since the first day of riverfront development and establishments of STPs began, I was involved as the first citizen survey person in it. So whatever I'm talking is from my personal experience, and I'm collaborating with the news articles to give you something that you can take away. So my journey, actually the survey ended for the riverfront survey. At that point in time, it was called riverfront survey, because they wanted to know what is people's perception about having good roads, having an amicable space where multicultural, multi-people can come in together and participate. They wanted to get people to the river bank, have a cycling track, blah, 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 and so on. So most of the surveys were conducted within the 500 meters for this specific survey, and it ended in 2016. At that time, only talk of 2 STPs as a role model were discussed. Indeed, my property were beyond that 500 meters where we were supposed to take the survey. And many people have many versions in that. Why I'm trying to talk about this is that typically 10 years before, what was the mindset of people? What were all they tricked into? How did they believe? How did they fought with each other? And finally, where it has led up. So we have a full decade of experience of how we have gone through personally ourselves. That's the history, so that it doesn't repeat again. And slow and steadily, different projects came together. One was again on the Kalyani Nagar Yerwada stretch, the Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary became the spot for the metro. And then I again did a citizen survey going through. They indicated here 100 meters, sir, that 100 meters, sir. And I did a rough calculation of 100 trees to be axed. At that point in time, the commissioner, including, said like transplantation works, and they got this big trees transplanted. Then we said it didn't grow. They said like it at least takes 2 years for it to grow. And then after 4 years, still they are just trees of barks lying over there. At that time, it was still riverfront development. JICA was a proponent, loan provider. And then it went on from being there. And that point in time, the objectives, like what Sarangji had spoken, at that point in time, it was never about flood control. It was about pollution abatement. Please watch the words. I'm not blaming anybody here, either from the administration, politics, people, or whatever it is. The message at that point in time to a common citizen is that the rivers are bad, and then we need to abate the pollution that is arising from it. At that point in time, you will hear this being said. You'll have great rivers through which you can take a cycle on a cycle track, enjoy with your friends on a morning. All we have heard it. And at that point in time, we never had to look for an expertise outside, because 2014, we were given the best sewage treatment plan in Pune by dignitaries. This is from the administration side of it. Okay, as Sarangji said, there were many credentials to how they projected what is the waste or the sewage that comes out, how much will be treated, blah, blah. Time there were only 55 lakhs to get the acquired forest land. I will temporarily stop my video because it's not going good in terms of internet connection. Are you guys still able to see the presentation?
Yes, Satya.
Okay. So at that time, the only bottleneck out of the 11 STPs were 2 STPs, one at Aum, the other one at Karadi. And they were trying to kind of minimize the impact on citizens by acquiring the forest land. At that time, it was 55 lakhs. Okay. And it went on. I think now recently they have acquired it, but that's all the split between how much crores have to be spent and how much will come from the center, how much PMC has to self-sponsor, and so on. And if you see put together, even an approximate figure, let's say 1,000 crores, right? See the cost escalation between then and now. Only one demarcation I would like to bring in clarity, as again Sarangji said, is that this was setting up STPs, acquiring lands, and then, doing the pollution abatement. Now, if you see, it is pegged at 4,727 crores. I'm not pulling it out of thin air. It's all in the news. So 1,000 to 4,700 crores. 3,700 crores is taxpayers' money. For what they are going to use it? Beautification by way of promenades? Or is it tree transplantation? Or is it STP building? Or is it flood control by pouring concrete wall? That's for you to judge as a common man or a common woman. Now, so now, what does the law of the land says? Law of land in retrospective before 10 years and now, it says the law of land is no more there. It is outside the riverbank. So why I am saying this is that without much discussion in 2021 over the objections raised by irrigation department, okay, PMC knowingly went ahead, not removing the encroachments on the blue line and the red line, but they themselves went in to construct something. No law of the land. With what courage they went, I do not know as a common man, if I have to put a shed there, you know what will happen. Okay. And the riverfront project will require 768 hectares, wherein gardens, jogging tracks, and recreationals will be built at that point in time through a special purpose vehicle. And as again, the environment clearances were given saying that no trees will be cut. It's all in glaring public media. They have said, and today they said that only 3,000 will be cut on these two stretches. Now, there are problems everywhere. World is facing a problem in terms of climate change, drought, weather, industrial impacts, and the floods. I have been a part of 7 flood relief operations, right from Chiplun, Ratnagiri, Pune, and so on. And people were always used to think, hey, it's flood somewhere, it's heat waves somewhere. Today, moving from 40 degrees to 44 degrees within inside Pune, even for one day, is harsh. But the weather reports, IMD says there have been 4 such instances, which means every 15 days, it's happening some or the other. Why I'm relating to the tree and why to the riverfront project is that once you concrete, it's the heat island effect that comes in, which means it doesn't have any other scope to escape. It affects you. So as a common person, unless we are, managing the people expectations, the economic well-being and the environment well-being, any project is not going to sustain. It might have some short-term solutions, but then it will reappear, right? Fixing one bucket, leaky bucket, the other one comes up. So what does individual citizens do? There's a problem at hand. Can't stop people migrating from one cities to the other cities. Basically, definitely there are more waste that's going to generate it, either in the form of liquid waste, solid waste, and so on. Okay. And it is between, a methaneous gas emission from a landfill trying to fight with the polluted river methaneous emissions. And then people will talk about which one is better, which one is bad, without knowing who created it. So what we can do is that we can look at our lifestyles or citizens' participation in defining the agendas and movements like this, and then volunteering your energy towards the benefit of society is like a philosophical talk, but there is an element to it. Why? Spread awareness or complain to the necessary authority when a tree is cut or when a river is polluted, or participate in your societies, bringing us to give presentations which will reflect the true picture of it. Now, while we are proud that Pune is the first carbon footprint study has been done here, and we are like, 1/10 of the major polluters across the world in terms of their emissions, but it's not something good. While if you see the bridge, this is the bridge where my house is nearby, and I have seen from 2003, 4 times the bottom of the bridge used to get filled with water. This is the place from where I see the river. Now, there is a good part and there is a not so good part. On the left-hand side, you see is towards the Sangam, where you see a lineup of trees, beautiful, you can walk in its shade, everything is great. But on the other side of it, you see almost like about 20-25% of the river is encroached. The ones that you see are on the blue line, which means it is the flood line. So you have step 1, which is on the right-hand side, the road towards the step 2 promenade, and then there is a step 3. So what more PMC is going to create more than whatever already exists by flattening out things. And we all know the value of trees. Supreme Court have given the judgments, and it has to be made as a part of the project estimates while counting on the cost that is also there. So now let's talk about everybody wants to work to bring food to their table. So necessarily transportation, going to job, having good house, everything is a prime requisite. And then you can live with it. Second, you need to have water to drink. Probably you can be without water, let's say for a day, but not more, right? Close your nose for 2 minutes and say if you can live. If you have succeeded, yes, you will get to tell stories how difficult it was and all the other logic vanishes off. So if you see in the world, how many trees do you really need per person based on the oxygen consumptions and so on, is that fully grown 7 to 8 trees is required, right? That is what we call as citizens to tree ratio. In other parts of the world, it's great. Not necessarily that they are in the urban area, but at least law of averages speaks there. Now coming to Pune, it is hardly 1:1.128. Please remember this. Why? Because I'm going to come and retouch at the end. What to plant? This completely given in the Maharashtra Urban Areas Protection and Preservation Act of 1975. It says what you need to plant, where you need to plant, and all the list of native trees are published on the PMC website. It is not that knowledge is not known. Everybody knows where to plant. As a common man, where to plant. There are different gardens, open spaces, along the road, along the banks of the river, water bodies, everything has been given. And it is more than 15 years I'm following up with PMC, or rather actively 10 years. They aren't able to make every 10 meters a tree as per the schedule 1. But to demolish the 3 sectors that we are talking about has happened within 3 months in no time. It's not the efficiency of PMC that we question. Where is the efficiency on implementation of the act? Then what is the citizen's responsibility? Like, I want to cut a tree in my place, in my home. I need to ask a permission, deposit 10,000 rupees, and then find a place to plant 1:3, right? And if I don't do it, I get a 5,000 rupees fine, 1 week to 1 year imprisonment if it is illegal. And I can't even nail a tree or deface a tree that invites 5,000 rupees fine. I'm not saying that I want to do it, but there are clauses. If you do it, you get punished. And then the classic Supreme Court's, results, which says deconcretization of 1.25 by 1.25 meter. Why I'm going into this detail while speaking about a riverside is that you kill a tree on the road, you don't plant enough. Whatever is the riparian zone of forest on the river banks that is given, you cut to once again plant. What is this mindlessness? The act is there. You just need to act. Next, what is the responsibility for a tree authority chairman or tree officers who are the ward officers of every ward? Is that whenever he plans to cut a tree, it is not like there is a rule for citizen, there is a different rule for commissioners. No, he or she also has to take the permission and then publish the thing in the docket. Here, all the dockets were published, but only thing is that we found discrepancy between what is presented in the docket versus what we actually see on the ground. And once the permission is given, they cannot cut it for 15 days. They will wait for objections from the citizens if there are any. If they cut within that, it is illegal. And from the date of permission to the time of cutting, they should not take more than 90 days. If it is so, they cannot accumulate permissions like this and cut after 2 years. They have to re-invoke the same procedure again. And for visibility, they just cannot say, I published it. Not everybody is going through the website. So it has to be published in a leading newspaper where subscription is high. All these are there. Okay. So it can't be that, you can escape a public consultation. And after hard work of, mobilizing people and over 10 years advocating this Tree Act, people now know that they have a voice and that had to be heard. Is by itself took a long time, but nowadays people are really enthusiastic about participating, that there is a law to protect them. And with the recent amendments, anything that is going over 200 trees of 5 years or old, it is just not some local guy who can take a credential and then say, hey, I have done it because I have a permission to do it. It has to be authenticated and approved by the state authority. So indeed, for the very first time, we have been called in a GB hall, general body hall, for accommodating citizens so that those are captured before sending it to the state authority. Earlier also there have been, but the seriousness with which PMC is doing is purely because of participating citizens and they know the law of the land, that it does have to be protected. Now, this is a nutshell which is available to everybody. Now I'm going to quickly roll over and then talk about what are all the dimensions or the mindset that you had to go through if you had to start 10 years before, which is the history that you will learn right now. Is that in 2013, the PMC said for the tree plantation drive, it has hit a space crunch hurdle, which means there is no area that they could plant a tree. And then in 2013 to 19, the government claimed that the Gram Panchayats, which were under the Pune's jurisdiction, 1.7 crore trees have been planted, which is almost like 46 lakhs, 1.7 crore divided by 46 lakhs people, or say trees, I would say, they had planted. And then there was no evidence that 87% of them even can be found on the ground. So everybody went mad, saying, hey, great, we were participating, that's good. To only find out 87 is not documented. There is no authenticity, even if it has been planted. Moving over to 2019, no more land left to plant trees that was specific to Pune while the 33 crore drive was happening, right? And they somehow completed it, saying that they don't have any left land bank to plant them in a contiguous manner because administration is very difficult. So that is what I say, is that putting horse in front of the cart. They promise something and get to start to work without knowing where it will go. Now, next deception is the ray of hope. 2019 to 2022, all of a sudden, from where we do not know. I do not know if Pune increased 10 times fold or they acquired all the villages. All of a sudden, we expanded 5.63 square kilometers in the last 2 years of just forest. Even if this were to be true, the chief conservator of forests lauded the citizens of Pune, saying that a major reason for the increase of the open forest, which is technically maybe correct because it's an open forest where the canopy is greater than 40% cover. Citizens are taking initiative to plant on their own. Wow, it was like a pat on the back for ourselves. We felt good that something good is happening. Keep this pat just for another 5 or 6 more slides. I'll come back to it, right? This was even authenticated by Bhupendra Yadav in the ISFR. So it's not just somebody local talking and patting us. It's everybody knows that we are doing a good job. I will come back to the final one. And people might be curious why Sathya is talking only about 2019 and after and so on and so forth. But no, few people, many people were there concerned about the trees, but few people came on the ground saying that whether they are able to make a difference or not, they didn't know. 2017, they stayed near the trees, slept near the tree, and then to prevent some tree cutting from being happening on the Aund road. 9 trees were cut on the morning. We found that they illegally cut, and we took a procession, gave it to PMC commissioner, and for 15 days until the tree committee was formed, the order said like for next until the committee is formed, no tree felling of Ward and Pimple will happen ever in Pune. If those few people who came on the ground thought that it's too huge to challenge the authority, think and rethink. Next, what are all the other deceptions that goes through and why it is important for the riverfront development is that majority of the cases, tree felling in the court failed to be proven. Only 30% even came to the hearing stage. Now, if we look at this Pune revival movement, at the first stroke, we were invited to the GB hall to raise exceptions. That itself is a great motivator for people to join in here. Next. Then the other deception is transplantation, more plantation, more oxygen. You will see funny things like biodiversity parks comes at the Vetal Tekadi. You will see like 59 trees to be cut to create an oxygen park. And somebody individually saying that mice entered my house for the overgrown tree, so we have to cut it. So on. And probably some other few challenges which are sensitive also is like 4 fully grown trees were cut inside the temple premises, saying that migratory bats and birds are doing droppings. Whatever, there are 1,000 reasons to cut a tree. What does the Tree Act says? There is a procedure, please follow. That's all the Tree Act says. Tree Act doesn't say you shouldn't cut a tree, but you should preserve and protect before you make that choice. And then transplanting, I'm not going to talk about what I think about this subject because I'm no expert, but the transport minister said that he holds the responsibility of national highway. There was cess collected for it. All the roadways will be made green. And then he said, he cannot show me a single road where good plantation is there, where good species are there, totally negligent. This is by the minister by himself over here. They launch different apps. They take confidence. They say something works, something doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And we have to wait and watch. Next, what does the Pune voices say in terms of the corporations as well as the citizens? Like the recent objection raising, our famous Gurdas sir had said that there is no involvement of a botanist or an absence of a botanist during the hearing. Who are we talking? Are we talking to the wall or some really people who knows the subject? 46 lakhs in the trees. And the good message at that time was put in by the corporation to deceive. I'm not questioning about the intention, but that is how it looked to me, being 10 years in this. They said like, hey, Punekars, come on, you're going to overtake Bangalore for the number of trees that are planted. And now the experts, the same corporation says there will be experts from an organization studying botany in Bangalore who will come and do a technical study of what type of trees should be planted along the river when the destruction happens in riverfront development. See this dichotomy. I'm not again questioning the intentions, but when they want, they will praise you. They will want you to be in a good mood. But when it actually comes to taking inputs, they don't listen to the voice of Punekars. Now, technically, they have improved also because they know people are objecting to it. Citizens are more advocate of Tree Act and they know what to do. They have gone through the pain of cutting a tree themselves. They know what the law says. Now there is a different tarika, different way. The one on the right hand side on the top you see is the canopy of the tree. And the bottom what you see is not a shrub. That is also a tree that is caught in between the second promenade and the third promenade which naturally exists. So what you see as a bush here is nothing but a tree. Usually the Tree Act says that whenever a tree is going to be felled or marked for something, it has to be at a visible portion, which means at the 6 feet or 7 feet girth level, you need to put that thing. This tree, when we went in, was inside the floor, which means below it was another 7 feet. And we have so many cases of photos where they are buried. It is technically not cutting of trees, but burial of trees that has happened. Tomorrow, when the roads are made on top of it, you will not know the tree has died inside. And then earlier, people were only talking about trees. Now, PMC has started taking permissions for shrubs also. Shrubs were never in question earlier. Forget about trees. Shrubs were never in question. Now they're explicitly mentioning to the media that we are going to take permissions for shrubs also. Why is it? Because the Tree Act 1975 says, whether it is a tree, whether it is a sapling, whether it is a shrub, any woody plant is a tree, a technical definition. So they just can't say it is yet another bamboo, yet another grass, and they can cut it off. No. That's the hard work for people who have joined this movement and being there to do that difference. Now, technically speaking, if you see, for a common man like me, if I have somebody has to, explain pakshi hai, birds hai, insects hai, and so on and so forth, whatever I see is a river, besides which some patthar is there or stones or big ones, and then there is a road connecting. That is all I see. I see probably there is an aquatic life, and there is some grazing happening. There are some shades and so on. That is what we see. Nowadays, we talk about Miyawaki and other technologies where land is sparse. We have enough land, we have enough trees, but we are still cutting, right? So why I'm saying this specifically is that we took a walk. And if you see, today 1:7 ratio is needed. We have only 1:1.28. If you don't disturb the riparian system and administer it properly, you can increase the number of trees count thrice, three-folds. You don't have to invest any money. Leave it alone and then add to the fauna and fauna of the riparian zone. Don't distract it. Have you ever seen garbage coming when there is a rain? Yes, you will see everything. But have you ever seen a tree log coming out? That's the strongness of the riparian zone, that it protects from flood naturally, that you don't have to spend another 3,700 crores. And for all the land that they're going to acquire, which is 556 acres, even per acre, as per the dense vegetation concept, if you have to do, you can fulfill 1.5 times of the tree requirement in the banks. That's the power of the river bank as seen by a common man if he knows a basic math. Now, as I showed you, this is the tree has been submerged. It is almost 3/4 of it is filled. The number 89, actually it is 289 or 389, something of sorts. These are all buried, and nearby you see the concrete that is laid at the 20% mark of the river. So what we are saying is that while your primary aim is to clean the river, why cut the river? It doesn't look in any logic to me, at least as a common man or a woman. Now, golden question. 23 crores of trees are being planted. 87 is not documented. Citizens are great, they increase the forest cover. We took permission. Individuals cannot fault. The governments, after all this magic of all this data cook up, the citizens to tree ratio is still 1:1.28. It became at one point in time 1:1.13, just because of the fact that 11 more villages were included, and with those villages it was brought in. So a 10-year time frame looking at, people who learn botany are blessed. People who didn't learn from history of what happened in the past is going to get into the deception mode. Few might be patting on their backs for all the good work that they pulled out, and many of them will be frustrated that still the tree count hasn't increased. While the primary objective of riverfront development started with pollution abatement, is still hanging in there somewhere. With this, I would also like to say, travel back 50 years later from here, all the trees that are grown fully is going to be again covered by the 1975 Act, that it gets a heritage status. Go back 50 years back, plant a tree, let it grow for 50 years. Somebody will come and say, cut the tree under the name of development. Citizens remain authorities of 50-year clause. Authority gives anyway a reason, like how they don't mind about the blue line anymore. They would say, go with hell to the Tree Act. Get off the Tree Act. Citizens feel betrayed, feel they spent half of their life wasting their time and effort for no reason. Let that moment be now that we can take action. Let's not wait for 50 years to understand this. Again, history teaches us a lot of things. So be aware. So when it is time, upcoming June, rains are going to come. We all plan together as citizens, as Punekar. We march together like what we did in Betal Tekadi. We acted together with the Chipko Andolan movement, and we protect together the trees, which are not just providers of oxygen, sequesters of carbon, but it gives you the life form as much as the river. Now, we talked about 50 years heritage structure of trees. Many of them in the current riverfront development belt, it is there. But I would like to remind, if we are taking so much serious about the trees that has to be preserved as heritage, let me remind everyone who might not know that the Mula Mutta River existed before Ganges came in, millions of years. If Sahyadris were declared as heritage, or UNESCO recognized Sahyadris as a world's heritage or biodiversity spot, Mula Mutta River has to be defined as a heritage river. And once it becomes a heritage river, we don't want anybody to touch our heritage, and we will act together and we will protect together. At the same time, this coming from me is quite challenging for myself and for people to hear when I say I'm okay to lose a complete forest for volunteers or citizens, because when destruction has to repeat as in history because of we didn't come together, it is those volunteers who will help me rebuild the planet and the forest too. So nothing works like citizens coming together, participate in large numbers, call for action, and show explicitly to the administration and the politicians that trees, clean air in terms of trees, clean river, and then clean land is all our priority list number one. Thanks again for giving me the time.
Thank you so much, Satya, for the incredible details that you have just shared.